Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, October 22nd Select Board meeting. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxborough Cable Access. We will start with the pledge. Mr. Dumas, would you honor us with leading us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Did I pick on you last week, too? Last meeting?
One meeting.
Okay.
If you're the only one that shows up, that's what happens.
Okay. That's what I was going to say. There's nobody else to pick on, so you got it.
It was Heather last time.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay.
Good memory. Good memory. Look at you.
All right, Mr. Dumas, anything for citizens input? Okay, perfect. You're welcome.
I know I criticize some of the boards from time to time, not always publicly, but I thought when you have something good to say, you really should say it publicly. And being active with the VSAC committee and Post-93 Legion, and very friendly with the vets at VFW 2626, everybody is enthused about Michelle Hamilton and Lauren Shirtliff. And I was in communication with a couple of other posts today, and I don't think anybody around can match what we have in Foxborough. So I wanted to share that with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great to hear.
Absolutely. And I would agree with you. She was, Michelle's definitely a great addition to our organization, for sure. Katie, anything online or anything?
No.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so unfortunately, I want to apologize at home where if you had looked at our original agenda, we had to cancel a couple of things, something we weren't quite ready to discuss. We have a couple of sick employees, and we thought it was best for them to stay home, take care of themselves. So we do not have our technology department update. Aaron is not feeling well. So we're going to skip down. Okay. To the water, it's kind of just technicality. We have to read this in and vote it. This is about the,
Through the chair, if I might, before
Absolutely.
we get to that one.
Yep.
And I apologize. I just before I get here, I saw the amended agenda. I didn't see it earlier. And just out of curiosity, the wage classification study, I mean, I'm surprised that got postponed. To me, I just thought it was a study that we're going to have a presentation on, something we had discussed a year and a half, 2 years ago. I don't understand why that was postponed.
we did not have all of the numbers filled in as of yesterday. They were working on it, and
So it was more them not ready?
No, I would say the secondary thing to it was that if it's part of the negotiation process, we were a little concerned at this point without having a discussion about it prior, because once you kind of put it out there, then you've actually gone into the negotiation side of that.
So were we looking to just discuss the process before we bring it here? Is
The
that
question is whether or not, and we're going to have to ask council whether or not it should be done under executive session with the selectmen, because it is part of what they wanted to negotiate into positions. From what we heard, I guess, the other day, there are 5 positions that are specifically of value in the study that, need to be reviewed. But again, it's, if you're negotiating, you're negotiating. You're not giving and then negotiating later.
So that study after council discussion might be an executive session?
Right.
yeah, Bill and I were going to meet with Paige Eppolito, and just to make sure, Bill had some concerns, I had some smaller concerns, and so we just wanted to, we're going to actually meet with her before the next meeting, just to make sure we're handling it the right way,
Okay.
that we should handle it. So we will be seeing it.
And
Definitely.
discussing it with council?
Yes.
together.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. It's coming back around.
And maybe 2 weeks?
Yes.
Ho-
Is that what you're
Yeah,
hoping?
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
To that end, while I have you here, we have quite a full agenda on November 5th already. Is it possible to start the meeting at 6 PM? Would everybody be available? Yeah, okay,
Especially with the potential of an executive
Yeah.
session at,
perfect, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll put
but
that.
I'm good
Okay,
Yep,
great.
perfect.
We'll send out reminders.
with a reminder.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so, yeah, so as far as, so this is to read in what was voted on at the Maytown meeting 2023 about the cleaning up of the water and the PFAS, and so we're just, this is kind of, technically, it has to be read in and voted by us as well.
And signed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so this isn't something new, so people don't freak out. This isn't, we're not, this $14 million was already appropriated.
Yes,
at
this
t-
was
at
already
town
voted,
meeting.
and this is a state program that is offering, 0% interest. It's a program offered to many communities. So this is, as Stephanie said, a technicality that has to be done as so. And so now there's going to be reading of, 2 to 3 pages of text, but it's required by the loan.
Yeah. Okay. The lovely Deb.
Motion to approve interim loan note and bond in connection with loan commitment number DWEC-23-118 from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, treatment plant. Select Board vote that, 1, that the town shall issue a bond or bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $14 million. The bonds pursuant to Chapter 29C and 44 of the general laws, and a vote of the town passed May 8th, 2023, Article 7, for planning or construction of drinking water infrastructure, the project. That the terms of the financing agreement or agreements between the town and the Massachusetts Clear Water Trust, the financing agreement, and the project regulatory agreement or agreements between the town and the Department of Environmental Protection of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, DEP, the project regulatory agreement, each relating to the notes and the bonds are hereby approved. 3, that in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds, the treasurer is authorized to issue an interim loan note or notes, the notes, from time to time in an aggregate principal not to exceed $14 million. 4, that each bond or note shall be issued as a single registered security and sold to the trust at a price determined pursuant to the financing agreement. 5, that the treasurer is authorized to determine the date, the form, the maximum interest rate, and the principal maturities of each bond and note, and to execute a financing agreement with the trust with respect to the sale of the bonds and notes, such date, form, and maturities, the specific interest rate or rates of the bonds and notes to be approved by a majority of the Select Board and the Treasurer, and evidenced by their execution of the bond or notes. 6, that any certificates or documents relating to each bond and notes, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original, and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document. And electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters relating thereto having the same legal effect as original signatures. 7, that all action taken to date by the town and its offices and agents to carry out the project and its financing, including the execution of any loan, commitment, or agreement by the treasurer, are hereby ratified, approved, and confirmed. And 8, that the treasurer and the other appropriate town officials are each hereby authorized to take any and all actions necessary or convenient to carry out the provisions of this vote, including execution and delivery of the financing agreement and the project regulatory agreement relating to the project.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Great job.
Thank you. Deb had her eyes dilated today. I was ready to fill in just in case. Good job, Deb. Thanks.
Good job.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right, now we're discussing a couple of the articles for special town meeting.
Actually, we are waiting for Barney over it
Okay.
because we're running so early. He
Yep.
won't be here till 7:30. So do you want to just
Yep, we'll skip
do our
over
action
that.
items till Barney gets here?
Yep, and just so everybody knows, we will be closing the warrant tonight, or voting to close the warrant. We are not going to be hearing the MBTA, the two articles for discussion and for us to vote on. Catherine is sick, also very sick, so we're going to close the warrant, and at the next meeting, we will hear from her, and then we'll vote if we support or not support, whichever, I guess, will we bring both up and then just, or,
Yeah.
so we'll just support or not support either one, okay.
One, the other, or neither?
Yeah, or no, okay, all right, super, okay, so,
Oh, one more
Article-
quick question on that.
Sure.
So one of them is automatically off the table because there were three
Yes, there were 3 maps.
maps. So
Right.
we've gotten rid of
There
map
was
one.
The
actually
one-
4. The original one's gone.
Yeah,
They got
yeah,
rid
yeah.
of one of the 3.
Of the three.
And so
Is
down
it
to
number
2.
one of the 3? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
with
Okay,
the-
perfect.
everything
Good.
across the street from the
Do you guys
stadium,
have the
that one's
warrant
fine.
yet? Because it's in the warrant.
Yeah.
If you want.
Yep.
Okay, it was on the table today.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for
You are
clarifying.
welcome. Okay, so we'll get back to that. Look at, we're already up to the town manager's update.
And, you know, I want to mention one thing, though. Opposite what was read in the Foxborough Reporter 2 weeks ago, we are discussing it, we are going to vote, and I want people to know that not necessarily,
Yeah, it's funny because I read the headline and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and so I'm guessing, I guess in Jeff's defense, he wasn't here, so I'm sure he either rewatched the meeting after to write the article. But he gave all the specifics, all the discussion was to the T, your
Yeah.
comments, Bill's comments. I think just the headline was exactly opposite of what we agreed upon,
Right. All right, good. Want everybody to know we are discussing.
At first I was like, is it me? I'm like, I thought we thought differently, but anyhow, so we'll definitely get to that. Paige, your
Sure.
update.
And yes, so to be clear, for anybody watching at home, on November 5th, Catherine and Barney will be here to discuss the 2 possible articles for MBTA communities to bring forward. So that will be discussed at the next meeting with the assumption that this board will vote. And the benefit to that is that you will have the planning boards, I believe they're having their discussion prior to that. Not 100%, but I know that was one concern they had, that they would be coming here. If they came here tonight, they'd be coming before their own discussion of it.
What about the advisory committee? What's the status?
They've already heard it. They have not yet voted.
Okay.
So, yes. Okay, so for town manager update, Chief Grace is proud to announce that Lieutenant Adam Burns was selected to the FBI National Academy. That will start in January of 2026, and it's an honor really only given to a handful of elite police leaders in the country. It's an annual selection, and it will ensure that future leaders of the agency still exist internally and to provide stability for command staff. So congratulations to Lieutenant Burns and to the whole organization as testament to the quality that's coming out of that group. Over on our DPW side, our GIS specialist, Ryan Norton, he's a behind-the-scenes player that, the public probably don't really even know about Ryan, but Ryan does yeoman's work behind the scenes. He does all our GIS and mapping. In fact, he did the maps for the MBTA communities. So he was given the Barbara Hirsch Special Service Award this week, or actually last week, when he was at a GIS conference. He was also given a regional chapter award called the Outstanding Chapter Award. So obviously, that his professional organization has noticed what we all noticed. I mean, if you send a request over to Ryan, and I always say, Ryan, I need this map, but I don't need it today. In the next week would be great. And typically within an hour, he's walking up to your office, handing you your map. So can't say enough about Ryan, and I'm glad to see that he's being recognized because he is kind of a quiet one down there in DPW. So we are thrilled to honor that. The Mass Cultural Council informed us that the Foxborough Cultural Council will receive an allocation of $9,600 through the local cultural program. I don't know if anybody's seen them, but we have some benches on the common. So we're finally, I know we've been talking about it forever, we finally have it.
I walk through town multiple times a day. They look great.
Yes, and we've received some great feedback and.
Some of the plaques are on them now, too.
Oh, good, good. And we have had a little more interest, so we might see a few more applications trickle in, because I think as people see it, we do have a couple more benches, so we might see some more. But again, kudos to Chris. This is a busy time of year. His staff is working, in every corner of this town, trying to keep things going, from wrapping up paving projects and, all the way to these long-range things we've been planning forever, like benches, and little project like PFAS plants and Walnut Street. He's just got a few things going on. We have learned that the 119 Morse Street appeal has been settled, and that is going to go forward. And we have been informed that the project is going to be transferred to Bruce Wheeler of Habitat Communities, but they are required to meet all conditions. The zoning board is aware of it, or their permit doesn't require any consideration in that regard. And the good news is, we did look up this team, and they do have an extensive amount of experience in housing development, both multifamily and condominiums and single family. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that, and that it looks like this project is going to start moving forward. I'll just remind everybody at home, I know this group knows, town meeting is November 18th at 7 p.m. The AdCom will be discussing the next round of articles on October 30th. We have our financial summit on November 26th, and for residents at home, it is a great way to get an understanding of your town government. And everybody always says, why are my taxes always going up? And what are we paying for? And so it's a great way to kind of understand school demands, other town demands, and kind of how we put all the pieces together and come up with a budget. So that is on, November 26th. We have a ribbon cutting for Convergent Technologies, November 7th, and that's at 25 Forbes Boulevard. So the select board is welcome, and let me know, or Katie know, if you'd like to attend that. I know it's always appreciated. From an HR perspective, we have a department administrator for the Council on Aging and Human Services, so that's a great position if anybody's looking. Conservation agent interviews are underway. In fact, I saw someone walk by to go do one right now. And as usual, we have DPW equipment mechanic and DPW water tech. Those are the ones we have trouble filling. Construction updates. 76 Main Street, the asbestos abatement is underway. If you drive by, you'll see a truck and dumpster, so they're underway over there. The sewer and elevator design is underway, and the paint and flooring has been chosen, so progress is being made. Over at the DPW, again, progress is also being made over at that facility. They're doing work. And then the design will start on the police locker room in the next couple weeks. As you can imagine, our facilities team and the team that does town building projects is a little busy right now with those two small projects. So they're going to phase that in. Chief Grace is patiently waiting, but I know facilities is going to get over there in the next couple weeks to get that underway. You'll see around town that curbing and sidewalks is, Market and Rock Hill is done. Cohasset was done. Now they're over by the Burrell School for a couple weeks. And then people always wonder, I know the Market and Rock Hill folks are frustrated because they want their road paved, and so do we. The problem is, and I think I might have mentioned this already, but the curbing is done separately from the paving. So we've waited in line, and we finally got the curbing over there, and I know Chris had to fight hard to get, because we're in a line with a bunch of other towns. So now we're in that same line for the paving. So he's working very hard to try to get paving for example, over there and in other parts of the town, but we're in a race with all other towns, all other contractors, and then, if the weather ever hits, the plants will close. So just be aware that, it's kind of like being at home when you have a contractor. You can't necessarily put the counters in until you get the cabinets done, right, Katie? That's where we are. We have to get the curbing done before we can do the paving, so just a little plug there, because I know it is frustrating to see things. And I know over on one of the streets, Chris was waiting for a piece of equipment to do some loaming and seeding, so there's just been a lot of work going on, and residents have been very patient, and we're very thankful. So stay tuned. There's a little more paving coming this year, but we are running out of time. And then we did get notice from Mass DOT that there'll be work on I-95 over Route 106 starting, I think it was yesterday, and it will go through October 31st. So folks might hear some noise, and that's what's going on there. That's it.
And to your point, Paige, because I'm down, down Cohasset, the sidewalks look beautiful, and I will say that, that's a pretty busy street. They did do a great job of, being able to reroute, people around, like, around down Elm and then back into when they were working, and so they did a great job, and it was done very smoothly, so.
Great.
I know everybody wants their sidewalks done, but like you said, I mean, they'll get to bits and pieces in town, but what is done looks good.
Looks great.
So,
Thank you.
all right. Hi, Barney.
Well, Barney?
We skipped over are you ready to rock and roll? That way you can get yours done, and if you're bored and don't want to listen to the rest of the meeting, you can leave.
I did already do the 119 Morse update.
Okay, what's that?
All set.
Okay.
And you know something, it's nice to hear that one way or the other, I mean, I didn't support it, but whether it was going to happen or not, I'm glad that a decision's been made, because I'll tell you, I've had a number of people say how just bad that property looks now, because it's just nothing, it's not upkept or whatever, so it'd be nice to know that it's gonna be looking good soon.
Awesome.
If I can just add, word on that. When the zoning board looks at a matter, at an application, we look at the project itself, what's being proposed, whether it complies with law, whether it does not comply with law. We don't look at who the applicant is. Our decision is based on the merits or demerits of the project itself. And, I'm sure that the individual to whom the transfer is being proposed is qualified, and if the Housing Livable Communities Department approves it, then we're ready to work with him.
Good.
And I'm sure that Mr. Shippey will be ready as well.
Good.
But I'm here to talk about accessory dwelling units. So this past summer, as part of Governor Healy's package relative to housing, the legislature enacted several amendments relative to zoning issues. One of those amendments dealt with, an amendment to the State Zoning Act concerning accessory dwelling units. And essentially what that law does, what those changes do, is say that no city or town can have a zoning ordinance or bylaw that prohibits, unreasonably restricts, or requires a special permit or other discretionary zoning action relative to an accessory dwelling unit that's going to be added to a principal dwelling that exists in the single residential dwelling, in a single residential district. In effect, what that means is that accessory dwelling units will be allowed by right in single residential districts. And what that also means is that our current zoning bylaw relative to what we call accessory apartments will be negated once the state law takes effect, which will be on February 2nd. So what I've done in preparing what will be Article 9 in the warrant is a series of revisions to our zoning bylaw that will comply with the requirements of the new state law and will also allow us the maximum ability to, that the state law allows, to govern accessory dwelling units. And that's all it is. And without that article being approved, we will have no zoning bylaw that will address this particular issue. That doesn't mean that accessory dwelling units will not be allowed in Foxborough, but the building commissioner will then need to rely on the specific provisions of the state statute and not on what we would have in a zoning bylaw. So from my own perspective, I feel that it's in the interest of the town, of homeowners who may want to add a dwelling unit to their homes, and the building commissioner, to have something in writing that spells out how this town is going to address this issue. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Dennis.
So does this mean after February 2nd, if I want to add an accessory dwelling unit in my current single-family home, that I can go through a process and get that approved and get it done? Basically is what I'm hearing.
If we do not, if we do not approve the article, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if we approve the article.
Okay.
Is that what that means?
So what you would then do would be to submit an application to the building commissioner. And the building commissioner would determine whether it complies with the state law, with the bylaw, and either issue you the appropriate permits to proceed with the project, or tell you, for example, you might need to go to the planning board for site plan review. You might need to go to the zoning board if
Right.
there's a variance that's required.
Right,
But you would not need a special permit
right.
in order to develop that unit.
Right, okay.
Chair? Okay, thank you. So, to come full circle, we all remember, we brought this forward a couple of years ago.
3 years ago, yes.
Was it 3? Okay,
Yep.
2.
I know it. I know it well.
And, you know, it was a big floor debate and eventually voted down. How is that versus this? So people are going to ask, you know, you already voted it down 3 years ago, why is it coming up? Obviously, it is because of state government. But were they similar type of, will they be similar plans? Are they, do you know what I'm trying to ask is?
Yep.
Is, because people are going to ask that about 3 years ago, because that was a hot button topic 3 years ago. And it's certainly going to come up on the floor again in a couple of weeks.
What I proposed 3 years ago were really some minor changes to the bylaw. I maintained the requirement that there be a special permit from the planning board, which is in the bylaw right now. What I did change was that the requirement that a family member reside in either the accessory dwelling unit or the principal dwelling unit be negated. And that we also had a provision to slightly increase the size of the unit, the allowable size of the unit. But it still would have maintained the requirement that an applicant go before the planning board for a special permit. The new law, again, says we can't require that.
And does, what about the part of family member having to live there? Is that gone, or is that fuzzy?
The state statute prohibits any requirement that the owner of the property occupy either of the units. I think requiring a family member to reside in one of the units would be an unreasonable restriction. So therefore, I've eliminated that in this draft.
Barney, does general zoning still exist, meaning sideline setbacks and
Yes.
stuff like that? So none of that gets changed
Correct.
by this?
The state law allows us to require dimensional requirements, bulk and height of structures, septic requirements, and to allow site plan review. And all of that is in the draft that I prepared. So in other words, the applicant will have to meet with applicable dimensional requirements, will have to comply with the applicable septic requirements, will be subject to site plan review by the planning board. There are also restrictions on short-term rentals that are permitted.
And one of the things we talked about was, or we wondered, was on parking. Is there I don't know, a limit is the right word, but, you know, just so that you don't have an accessory use and somebody comes in with 6 cars into a,
Yeah, the state law, right now, our bylaw requires 2 additional parking spaces relative to an accessory unit. State law only allows us to require 1. And if the accessory unit is going to be within a half a mile of the train station, 0.
that, the minimum doesn't bother me. Is there any cap to how many they can have?
Yes, you can only allow 1 additional,
Oh, okay.
and no additional if you're within a half mile of the commuter rail station.
But what if the applicant wants to put 3 in? Are they allowed to? Okay.
No,
So if they're in a half mile, within a half mile, they can't have any parking?
any. It's strict wording in the state statute.
And Barney, so without you having to, I'm not going to ask you to tell us all the dimensions, comparable, it's kind of off of Doc's question a little bit, comparable to what we already had slash, I know you said you know, when you brought it forward, you made it, could be square footage just a little bit bigger, stuff like that, but comparable to what we had and what the state is saying as far as dimensions and stuff like that, are they similar? Or is there any one piece of it that is you're like, oh, well, we had 1,200 square feet and they said it can be, you know, 1,700 square feet. Is there anything that's really off compared to what we had?
I think there were about a half a dozen differences between what we have now and what we would have to comply with the state law. And if I can just go through them, you know, quickly.
Sure.
You know, number 1, again, is right now we require a special permit from the planning board for accessory unit. We can't require that. Number 2 is currently we restrict size to 850 square feet net area. The state law says that the unit has to be the smaller of one half the gross floor area of the principal dwelling, or 900 square feet. So I'm not sure quite what the difference is, because net area and gross area are obviously different.
The maximum, the larger of the two or the smaller of the two?
Smaller of one half the gross floor area of the principal dwelling, or 900 square feet. And again, that's gross as opposed to net under the current bylaw. Again, owner occupancy, a requirement for owner occupancy is prohibited. You know, we do require that right now. We can't require that going forward. Again, we talked about the issue of a family member. The state law, again, you know, on the parking, we talked about where we have to, you know, restrict the number. And the other difference is, under our bylaw right now, the accessory dwelling unit has to be attached to or part of the principal dwelling. It's not in the section specific to accessory apartments, but there's another section in the bylaw that would deal with that. And the feeling seems to be, and I agree somewhat reluctantly, that to prohibit detached units would be an unreasonable restriction and in violation of the state law. So as a consequence, I'm allowing, or I shouldn't say I'm allowing, I've drafted the bylaw to allow detached units. So the unit can either be part of, contained within the house, or in a separate structure. So I think those are the principal differences. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
Stephanie?
But it has to be to the side or to the back.
Correct.
Right.
Unless you have, or already have a detached garage that's in front of the house, and I was kind of surprised to see it on a different matter that I was dealing with, a different application. If you have a garage that is in the front yard or in front of the house, and the homeowner wants to convert that to an accessory dwelling, or convert part of it to an accessory dwelling, then that would be permitted.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the front or the rear.
Right.
I'm sorry, the side or the rear.
Through the chair, may I have a question? So if, for example, at my house, I have a, space over my garage, so I could presumably turn that into and I don't live in Foxborough, but could presumably turn that into an accessory apartment. Under this, it would require a site plan review, even though there's absolutely zero change to the footprint, the external, like, you'd never know I might have one today and no one would know, so would that just be a matter, then they'd probably come to the planning board and ask for a waiver of site plan review? Because there's nothing to review.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Would you still have to submit, though, a
They still have
plan
to
that
put an
would show it
application,
and
because they're
document it?
converting, yes.
Yeah, so you'd still have the cost of having to do,
They usually wait, like, usually they don't charge the $1,000 to waive it, but yeah.
But there are things required within the accessory dwelling unit that wouldn't necessarily be, on site now.
Right.
You'd have to do those renovations.
They'd be invisible, right. The fire safety, the second means of egress, those types of things, but in theory, you wouldn't be able to see them, but.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that even something that was, it's very clear about site plan for an accessory dwelling that's separate. I mean, you'd absolutely want to do that. And maybe if you were adding a big addition, so I was just clarifying that if you had an existing space on your footprint, you'd still need to go through. But Scott and planning would figure out how to handle that.
Again, there's still the requirement that the applicant go to the building commissioner for the requisite permits, so those kinds of issues, if somebody was converting a garage, they would still need to go
Right.
before the building commissioner.
Oh, okay, so I have a good question for you, just because you're very aware of Summerfield and Cannon Forge. Does this negate all of our rules that we already have, that were granted by special permit? I mean, I don't think we have that many lots that would probably be big enough for siding and stuff like that. But, obviously, we have, you can only have 2 bedrooms, we are on town sewerage, and, we have certain rules. So is all of that just gone if it would comply with sidelines and stuff like that?
Well, again, we can't prohibit, we can't have a zoning bylaw that prohibits, or if we have no zoning bylaw, the building commissioner could not prohibit. So I think the answer would be if one of your neighbors wanted to add an accessory dwelling unit to his or her home,
Yeah.
we can't stop that.
Yeah, well, and one of the big reasons I asked that, because obviously, we sold back a good amount of our sewer capacity because we didn't need it. So if our homes were allowed to get bigger, what would that do to us if we, I think we have a good amount of sewer capacity, but that was one of I think the agreements that was made was that it was determined how much it would be sold back to the town, from the beginning. I think they just wanted to make sure they were seeing how much we used, based on a 2-bedroom home, how many people you would have. So if all that changed, well, I guess I shouldn't say what if, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs. If there was an issue with us with sewer capacity, at some point, would that come into play, whether Scott would issue a permit? Like, what would happen if we got close to our capacity? I know we have a lot of strange things that the special permit gave there. Just curious if being on the board there, I'm wondering if we're gonna start to see these issues there.
Again, we're permitted by the state law to require applicants to adhere to septic requirements, to wastewater requirements, so I think that could be an issue going forward.
Yeah.
I certainly can't give you an answer today on
Yeah.
that.
Well, something, part of Scott's, if somebody wants to add on to there, Scott sends it back to us, actually. So I don't know if that'll change, whether, and, he'll look at the application for an add-on, and he wants to add on to their home, and has to comply with the town rules, but then they have to actually come back to our board for permission to do it.
but is an accessory dwelling something that is self-contained?
No,
So you can add a bedroom to a house, and that's an accessory,
no.
so they'd have to have,
Because the definition of accessory dwelling, and I've adopted it here, I've adopted the state definition, is you're talking about a self-contained unit that has kitchen facilities,
Right.
bedroom, et cetera.
Yeah, that was the question.
So just adding a bedroom to the house would not be an accessory dwelling, but
You'd
adding
have to add all that.
a kitchen, a bedroom,
Yeah.
bathroom might be.
And the difference, like you said, what you were proposing last time, it had to be attached. And now it doesn't have to be attached. So
Correct.
that's the big, but the other definitions of a accessory apartment have to be there, like what you just mentioned.
But I think
Yes.
as Barney had said, in your area where the lots are small, to meet sideline setbacks and back setbacks, and to be able to add something big enough that would have a bedroom, a bathroom, and a kitchen,
Yeah,
would be very tough, I
Yeah.
would think.
And I would think that if you guys pushed the envelope of sewerage and you went to ask for more, and the town
You'd have to
said
buy it.
no,
Well, they'd either have to buy from us, or the town would say no.
right, you can't buy, and then that would be one of the limitations to not approve, I would guess,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have wastewater
If you don't have
treatment,
the
you don't have
wastewater,
Yeah.
a
because
house.
you
And-
can't buy any more.
Yeah, I mean, we were careful to make sure that even though we were selling some back to the town, that, which a lot of that ended up with the project in Sharon, but we didn't leave ourselves like, oh my God, like, I mean, we should be fine, but you never know when you start adding on. And I don't really even know how many homes in there would meet the guidelines, sideline stuff. We don't have big lots there, but I was just curious what would happen if, does the town have any say in something about that? Or would the state law just say no,
Well, again, we can require applicants to it, and this is in the wording here, to adhere to applicable septic requirements, so.
Yeah.
I think the issue is going to be more so with somebody who's going to add sufficient bedrooms to really not comply with local requirements as far as, septic systems.
Yeah.
Two of the things that I did here were adopt new definitions. I adopted the state definition of accessory dwelling unit. Right now, we call it accessory apartments, and I did that for two purposes. Number one is to be consistent with the state law. And number two, maybe, I don't know if psychological is the right word, but dwelling unit, to me, sounds more palatable than apartment. I think that goes to your earlier question. Going back 3 years ago, a lot of the arguments against the bylaw changes were apartments. And maybe by using the word dwelling unit, there might be a little bit more acceptance, to it. The second thing was to adopt the state building code definition of gross floor area. The term that we have in the bylaw is really inadequate, and I think particularly for Mr. Shippey's purpose, in reviewing any application for an accessory dwelling unit, the state building code definition would be most appropriate for gross floor area, the current bylaw definition.
No, I think, as I said, when I was on the advisory committee, this was my article, so I'm very familiar with it. You did a great job, laying out everything that you have changed and how it will improve, what was in place prior to that. And there's been a real chill on actually doing this because of the special permit process. There is a housing shortage. This will incrementally help the housing shortage, whereas with the special permit, is very minimal impact on getting this done and, helping with the housing shortage. So I think this is an improvement, from where we were, and it took the state to really, promulgate to, help us get there. But I have supported this approach because I think it helps seniors in particular. With that, you have equity and, they want to do something, but, the barriers were just pretty difficult.
The Housing Livable Communities has estimated that statewide over 5 years, 8,000 to 10,000 accessory dwelling units would be developed statewide. So it's certainly not going to be a groundswell. And I think this was also some of the arguments we heard 3 years ago of people clamoring to build these apartments. I think people are going to do it only when there's an absolute need, and in a large part, that's because of the excessive cost to do this.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Dennis, that there is a need for it. And I wouldn't be drafting this, I wouldn't have drafted this if I didn't feel we had to comply, because I learned my lesson 3 years ago. But I think it is good policy, and I do think that there is a need for it.
I have to ask the question, because I'm sure it's going to be asked at town meeting, because everybody's hating the fact that the state is now just pushing mandates. Is anybody out there contesting?
I haven't heard of anything. I don't know, Paige, have you seen anything?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
That was basically my
Definitely coming up.
That's my last question. So, I mean, just so the people should know at home, it doesn't matter, if this goes to town meeting and this article doesn't pass, it really, you know, I hate to say it doesn't matter, but the state, you know, the town is going to have to
No,
comply.
I think conversely, this time it does matter. Before, without the state having its stuff in place, we were just saying no, and it wasn't going to change what we had.
Yeah.
Now the state's got their stuff in place, and if we don't put something
Yeah.
with our changes
Yeah.
in, we have no control.
Well, that's what I mean when I say it doesn't matter. It's going to happen. The
Correct.
town is going to be granting people permits when they go through the process. So is this really so that everybody sees, I'm sure you worked hard at putting this all together. So this is just so we all know what the rules are, and if the town votes no, the rules are still going to be here, and Scott is going to have to grant, and the planning board is going to have to go through, people are going to go through the process. And they're gonna
Actually,
get-
if I may chime in, it probably, the town, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barney, but if they don't adopt this bylaw, then there would be no site plan review under the state.
I would think so.
So there will be no, right now, the way Barney wrote it is they have to go to the planning board for a review. You can't deny it, but you can at least look at the layout. Under the state statute, I don't believe there's any provision for review, so it would be a mere building permit. So the town would actually lose a little, not necessarily protection, because you're going to have to allow it, but you could, you know, the board could say, well, can you move it a little bit more this way or hide this that way? They could look at the layout.
Yeah,
I mean, one way or another, on February 2nd, we're going to have to comply.
exactly.
And I just think it's to the interest of a homeowner in Foxborough who may want to do this, as well as for the building commissioner when reviewing an application, know what our rules are, you know, relative to the issue.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason alone, it would be appropriate to move forward in this
Yeah.
direction.
And people have to realize, you know, Paige knows the process.
Yeah.
That any little bit that the town could want to tweak would be gone if we don't adopt it.
Yeah.
So everyone has to realize that too.
And to Barney's point, and I know I've said this previously, but we had an applicant that came in for an accessory apartment, went through the plans, did, you know, spent a considerable amount of money on the process, and then got a construction quote on it of $400,000. And immediately he just had to walk away. And that was for a simple, you know, one bedroom attached over a garage apartment. So it is cost prohibitive. So you're not going to see every Tom, Dick, and Harry throwing one of these up. But what will be different, and back to Dennis's point, is those who are in need, without the special permit and without the requirement to remove the kitchen when a family member passes, that allows banks to actually provide financing. Right now, they don't want to finance something that is temporary, pretty much in nature, that's contingent on a certain population living in a home. In our permits, we say, right now, when that family member no longer lives there, you have to remove the kitchen. So what bank is going to let you borrow $400,000 when you're then going to lose that value when the person, you know, moves or passes on? So what this does also is gives the ability for these homeowners who might, you know, want a family member or not, maybe a child, and then, but in the future, when that need is no longer, then they can actually continue to recoup, you know, kind of a side hustle. But that allows the banks to finance it, so.
Anybody?
Side hustle,
Anybody else?
Yep.
it's the new world.
Motion to approve special town meeting Article Number 9, zoning bylaw amendment, accessory dwelling units.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Did you just want to recommend approval as opposed to approving?
No, we did.
Yeah, we did recommend.
Yes, we
We
did.
recommend it.
Recommend approval.
Still second.
Yep. No other discussion, Dennis? Get anything?
Oh,
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And while we have Barney here, because there is a question, I know Katie needs the warrant signed tonight, but this map is going to make us all insane. Barney, you sent an email, hot off the presses today about so what we were saying is if you guys could vote to sign the warrant subject to, and Barney, do you want to help explain? So what is it that we don't want the sub-district or the Patriot Place version as part of the formal map title? Because in the future, we're only going to have one map, so we don't need is this version or that version. We only need the multifamily overlay district map. And so perhaps what we could do is take these maps, and rather than have the sub-district version in the title, maybe we could label it something like exhibit, sub-district version, something like that. So when the formal map is adopted, if it's adopted, it would not include that detail that is not part of it, that's not needed once we only have one. Did I capture that?
Yeah, because right now, the verbiage on the map will be inconsistent with the wording in the bylaw itself, the proposed bylaw provision itself.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yep. All right, great.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Good job.
A lot of work.
November 5th,
That's November 5th.
MBTA Communities.
Oh, that's when you're gonna have it? Okay. Well, we're supposed to go before the planning board on Thursday.
That's good. Maybe we can get them to come to the meeting to meet with the select board.
Okay.
But anyway,
I'll see you November 5th,
we're rolling
Thank you,
with it
Bonnie.
here.
if I'm invited.
You're invited.
You're always
You're
invited.
invited. Thank you.
Bye, Barney.
Okay. All right, so we're back to Selectmen's update, I believe. correct?
You wanna
We got
just
to
finish?
do the warrant.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, anybody want to talk about anything about the warrant before we actually make the motion? We good?
Yeah, other than the change.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And just so everyone does know at home, we are accepting the warrant, we're closing it tonight, and then we will, at our next meeting, November 5th, we'll hear the MBTA articles, and we will take a vote to recommend or not recommend.
Motion to approve the final November 18th, 2024 special town meeting warrant,
As amended.
As amended.
Yeah, as amended.
as amended.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great.
Okay, so, under Selectmen's update, I have a couple of things. First of all, just want to mention, I know Paige let us all know, thoughts and prayers out to Chief Grace's family. He lost his dad last week, and so just want them to know that they are in our thoughts and prayers. And also, a couple of things.
Can I just mention one other thing? too?
Absolutely.
On that, I sent him a text a couple of days ago, and he sent me back a picture of his father in front of us during that World War II. Remember, we were honoring World War II vets a couple of years ago? And his dad was one of them. And it was a great picture of his dad in front and us around him. And it's just a little note from Mike, Chief Grace, that meant a lot to his father. And just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, he said that he might have been one of the last World War II vets in the town, Mike thought, so, yeah.
Yeah, could be now, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know how funny it is, now I'll be able to, I wasn't sure. I got a text today from Joe Garrity asking if there were any World War II vets left living, if I knew. And I directed him to Michelle, because I didn't want to give misinformation, I wasn't really sure, but it's just funny now that you bring that up. Now, I might be able to text him back a little info anyhow. Just quick on Laced Pizza. Congrats, even though they're not officially open, I keep seeing on Facebook, people are posting pictures of the pizza. It looks really good. If anyone's interested in trying them out, I guess what I'm hearing is the waits are long because they're not fully open yet. But, congratulations on, even with not being fully open, they're doing, they seem like they're going to be successful, which is nice to hear. We also, just a reminder, we have the Recreation Halloween Annual Parade this Saturday, October 26th, 2:30 to 4 o'clock. You gather in the Town Hall parking lot, and at 3 o'clock, they'll start the parade. Kids will trick or treat around the common like they always do. And then, just as a little reminder, the Church of Emmanuel is having their fall festival right after at 4 o'clock, so people know about that. I did get a call from Kristen today, and she said that unfortunately she is short one judge for the costume, so I volunteered Deb. No, she asked me if I would, and I said I would be
You
thrilled.
said you would. If she was stuck,
I
you should
did,
say
and
that.
I told her, I said I would be thrilled. I did a couple days way back in the day when I was on Friends of Foxborough Recreation. It's a lot of fun, and
A lot of
so-
pressure.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad, like, I'm not really going to know the younger families, because my kids are that much older, like, no one's going to say, hey, she knows them, and that's why she picked them, so I'm going to be a fair judge, so I'm looking forward to it. So it sounds like, that's always a great event, the kids really love it. The other thing I want to mention was, just, the board might already know, if not, we had an open meeting law violation, a send in to the AG's office if we had violated from our friend Mr. Higgins. Back in the end of June, we did get notification from the AG's office that there was no violation. So just in case anyone was wondering or waiting to hear on that. But, so that's all set. And that's all I have. Anybody have anything else they want to mention or anything coming up?
No.
No? Deb? No, good. All
I'm good,
right.
thank you.
All right, we're good. So we go to action items.
Motion to accept the donation from Soon Ray Kim in the amount of $1,000 to the Boyden Library.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept donations for the Veteran Banner Project in the amount of $650 from the following donors: the Storer family, the Talbot family, the Fleming family, the Silvestri family, and the Blaze family.
Second?
Under discussion, those seem to be going really good.
I think they're
Did-
sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I believe I was in passing, I heard that they're all sold.
And if you can remind me, I know when Michelle came before us, so they had a certain number, and can they extend that?
So
Or they'll
we have a
just-
certain number of given, poll holders.
Yeah.
Everybody's been pointing out that every other town you go to, they just have them thrown up on polls all over town. So I think we were going to do the clearly allowed ones first. I think it was 28, something like that. And then they'll look at the next phase. It's a little less clear cut.
Yeah.
How they get done. But every other town does it right on those utility poles, so I don't know. I don't know if they just don't ask permission or how they go about it, but
Yeah, well, good for them. It's a great program.
I do
the
think they
bridge-
want to expand it if they can.
Yes,
Bridgewater's going to have 100 of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept the donation from Post 93 in the amount of $1,500 to the 2025 Foxborough Police Department Youth Program.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Motion to accept the donations from Post 93 in the amount of $899.50 to the Veteran Services Officer to purchase the book, The Rifle 2.
Second?
Under discussion, I was just going to wait and thank Mr. Dumas as part of Post 93, and he actually told me a little bit about these books, and I know you're very excited to get it.
Rifle was a great book.
Yeah,
It was 18 individual veterans from World War II, like 10, 15 pages each. So it's an easy read, you don't have to get overwhelmed by a couple hundred pages or 300 pages. And he spoke at the library to a full house not long ago, He was wonderful. He's a Boston police officer.
So through the chair, I read The Rifle, it was phenomenal. So is this the second book,
Yeah.
Rifle 2? He extended it with more people?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, wow, awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great read, you're right.
Yep. Thank you so much, Paul. All those in favor? Aye.
Motion to accept the donation from William Bristol in the amount of $1,000 to the Historical Commission for Town Cemetery Restoration.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve Select Board meeting minutes from October 8th, 2024.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody. Thank you.